Hello, beautiful people. It's Vlad from Synaptic Schism here, and today I'm going to try to answer a question that was left on another video regarding mixing symphonic metal, which was about when the band and the orchestra were together, things got a little bit muddier, okay? So what I did was I created this piece. It's just a 4-bar loop with orchestra and band, but the orchestra is a little bit denser than what it usually is. So this is the orchestra. And check that low end, because there's a section of double bass there, and also like low brass. These two are really important, okay, because they give the body of the orchestra here. Okay, so if I wanted to show you that, I would, let's remove this, let's solo the double basses, and in the brass, let's solo the low brass. So it's important to have this sound, because these are the guys that are giving like this body to the whole thing, right? Okay. Now that all of this is set up, it's time to show you the band, and the band sounds like this. So pretty standard drums, bass, double-tracked guitars. The only thing that I did before showing what I'm about to show is I just added some EQ to the drums, to take a little bit of that rumble in the low end, give it a little bit of presence. And in the guitars, I give it a cut so that the bass had a little bit more room and nothing else. So this is how the band sounds just by itself. And I think that because the source is really cool, the sound is quite alright, right? This is perfectly acceptable. And the same can be said for the orchestra. So we have the body, but like the low-end body, but it's not overwhelming. And then the strings and a little bit of high brass, just giving that ostinato. But both of them are acceptable, right? Now, when we put both of them together, we start having issues. So the low mids, the frequencies in the low mids kind of just pile up there, and it gets muddy, right? So when that happens, usually what we do is we just go to an EQ and we try to kind of shave that low mid area to give it a better sound. Something like this, which I call the bad EQ, and I'll show why in a moment. It's a lot cleaner, right? So we have less mud. We just a cut of 3.5 dBs on a couple of frequencies, right? So the difference, like that pile up of low mids is not happening anymore, right? When we do this, it just disappears, that mud. The problem with this is that if we have either the band or the orchestra playing on their own, like in a part where we just want the parts of the band or parts of the orchestra playing, they are not going to sound great. So the band will sound like this. So the guitars just lost the body, like they have the presence, but they don't sound heavy, right? So this is how they would sound without EQ. See the difference? It's a lot thinner if I engage the EQ. So this EQ would not work if we just had the band playing. And if we have a track where the orchestra and the band play at different times, this is going to be an issue, okay? Likewise, this is also a problem for the orchestra, actually, because we lose the body of the low end. We still hear the instruments, but we lose them. So So this is with EQ, without EQ it sounds like this. Like that lush low end disappears when I engage the EQ. So basically we cannot use this. That's the problem. Because if we use, in this case, the EQ directly in the mix, it's going to work well when everything is working together, but then we are going to lose either the body of the band or like the lush low end or the low mids of the orchestra. So what we are going to do, we are going to use a dynamic EQ, and this is a pretty steep dynamic EQ in these two frequencies, and I'm going to show the difference. So this is without the dynamic EQ, so the mud is there. Now if we engage the EQ, we have a lot more room for like the kick, the snare, the bass, the low end of the guitar, right? So without the EQ, and now with EQ. The difference is actually subtle in what it's doing, but what's addressing is that there's a pileup of instruments in that specific frequency, and what it's doing in the orchestra, it's lowering dynamically most of the body of the double basses and the low brass. This EQ is in the orchestral bus, and this sidechain here is actually sending to this EQ, and it will affect dynamically these two frequencies. So this is a basic sidechain dynamic EQ setup. So I'm going to lower the volume here, and because this is being sent pre-fader, we can hear how this affects the orchestra without listening to the band. Okay, so let me put it without EQ. We have that full sound, right? The EQ is doing nothing. Now check when I engage the EQ. Sounds thinner. And that removal of the EQ dynamically is enough to make the track sound okay. So I'm going to disengage EQ. We have the full body. Now engaging it, it sounds thinner, but it sounds thinner in context with the band, so this is the objective. Here's the difference. A lot of like middle stuff there, and now it just leaves room for the band. Okay, so I hope that this helps. This is usually what I do. You can do this with dynamic EQ. You can do this with multi-band compression also. You can do it with plugins like Trackspace, but in my opinion, the most surgical way to do it is with a dynamic EQ. And as long as nothing is going through that sidechain, it's fine, and nothing will be affecting the overall sound of the orchestra. I hope that this was useful and that you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions or ideas for these videos, leave it in the comments, because this video was done because of one of those comments, and it would be really cool to have more ideas to show stuff like this. Okay, thank you, and until the next video, bye bye.